Nobody saw this coming. Just when fans thought the drama surrounding Jasmine's second pregnancy couldn't get any messier, one careless moment flipped everything upside down. What started as a quiet family livestream turned into a full-blown internet meltdown, and at the center of it all was one shocking slip of the tongue that fans swear was never meant to be heard. Emotions ran high, comments exploded, and within minutes, screenshots were flying everywhere. Because according to viewers, Rasheda's mom may have just made the biggest mistake of her life. Fearful face. In a now viral clip, Rasheda's mom leaned in, thinking the camera was off, and that's when it happened. One name. Just one. But that single name sent fans into detective mode and left the family completely divided. Was it an accident? Or was it a calculated move to finally expose the truth Jasmine has been hiding for months? Fans are shocked, stunned, and split straight down the middle. Jasmine has been fiercely protective about the identity of her baby's father, shutting down rumors and dodging questions at every turn. But now, with this alleged leak, everything she tried to keep private is threatening to spill out in the most public way possible. Friends went silent, family members started subtweeting, and Rasheda? She was caught right in the crossfire, forced to choose between loyalty and truth. Whispers turned into accusations. Accusations turned into heated arguments. And before anyone could clean up the mess, the internet had already decided something wasn't adding up. Was this the moment the truth finally slipped out? Or is this just the beginning of an even darker family feud that's about to explode? Buckle up, because this story gets way messier from here. The moment that clip hit the internet, everything changed. Jasmine was at home when her phone started vibrating nonstop, message after message piling up faster than she could read. At first, she ignored it, thinking it was just fans speculating again, but then she saw the name popping up over and over in her notifications. Her heart dropped, her hands started shaking. No way, she whispered to herself, replaying the clip again and again, hoping she misheard it. But the damage was already done. Fans were shocked, emotions ran high, and the family was left divided before anyone could even get a word in. Across town, Rasheda was sitting on her couch, staring at the ceiling, completely frozen. Her mom was pacing back and forth, phone pressed to her ear, arguing with a family member. "I didn't mean to say it like that," her mom snapped. They took it out of context. But Rasheda knew better. She knew that name didn't come out by accident. It was too clear, too confident, and deep down, she felt a pit in her stomach because she knew exactly why her mom said it. "You promised me you wouldn't say anything." Rasheda finally broke her silence, her voice cracking. Her mom stopped pacing and turned around slowly. "I didn't leak anything," she replied defensively. "People hear what they want to hear." But Rasheda wasn't convinced. She had been carrying this secret for months, watching Jasmine struggle to keep control of the narrative, and now it was unraveling in the worst possible way. Meanwhile, Jasmine's group chat with her closest friends was on fire. Some were asking if the rumors were true. Others were warning her to stay offline. One message stood out. "If it's not true, why did she say that name?" Jasmine threw her phone on the bed and burst into tears. She felt betrayed, exposed, and humiliated. She had trusted Rasheda's family more than anyone, and now she felt like they had thrown her to the wolves. On social media, fans were already connecting dots. Old videos resurfaced. Screenshots of comments from months ago were reposted with red circles and arrows. "We knew it," one fan wrote. "This explains everything." Another commented, "Jasmine lied to us and now the truth is out." Emotions ran high in every corner of the internet, and the pressure on Jasmine was unbearable. Rasheda tried calling Jasmine, but the call went straight to voicemail. She tried again, and again, nothing. Finally, Jasmine sent a single text, "Tell your mom to keep my name out of her mouth." That message hit Rasheda harder than any public backlash. She felt torn between defending her mother and standing up for her friend. The family was left divided, and Rasheda was stuck in the middle. Later that night, a family meeting turned heated fast. Voices were raised. Accusations flew across the room. "You embarrassed us," one relative yelled at Rasheda's mom. "You embarrassed her," another shot back. Rasheda's mom slammed her hand on the table. "I'm tired of everyone acting like Jasmine is innocent," she said coldly. She put herself in this position. The room went silent. That was the moment Rasheda realized this wasn't just a mistake. This was resentment finally spilling out. At the same time, Jasmine went live for the first time since the clip leaked. Her eyes were red, her voice shaky, but her words were sharp. "I'm seeing a lot of lies being spread," she said. "And I'm hurt by people I thought were family." Fans flooded the comments, demanding answers. "Say his name," one wrote. "Confirm it," another begged. Jasmine paused, took a deep breath, and ended the live abruptly. That silence only made things worse. Behind the scenes, rumors swirled that the alleged father had gone into hiding, deleting his accounts and refusing to answer calls. Fans were shocked by how quickly things escalated. Some blamed Jasmine, others blamed Rasheda's mom, and some believed this was all part of a deeper feud that had been brewing for years. Rasheda finally showed up at Jasmine's door late that night. When Jasmine opened it, the tension was unbearable. Neither of them spoke at first. Then Jasmine said quietly, "Did you know she was going to say it?" Rasheda shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "But you knew the truth," Jasmine replied. That question hung in the air, heavy and painful. Rasheda didn't answer. She didn't have to. Jasmine closed the door slowly, leaving Rasheda standing there alone, realizing that whatever happened next would change everything forever. Rasheda stood there long after the door closed, the silence louder than any argument. She didn't knock again. She couldn't. Instead, she walked back to her car, sat behind the wheel, and let the reality sink in. The secret she had helped protect was now tearing everything apart, and no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't pretend she wasn't part of it anymore. Her phone buzzed. A notification. Jasmine had posted a cryptic message online. "Truth has a way of finding the light." Fans were shocked, emotions ran high, and speculation exploded instantly. By morning, blogs were running fabricated headlines, each more dramatic than the last. Jasmine exposed by close family source. Second baby daddy finally revealed. The comments were ruthless. Some fans accused Jasmine of manipulation, others accused Rasheda's mom of betrayal. Screenshots of old group photos were reposted with captions like, "This was hiding in plain sight." The family was left divided, and every move they made only added fuel to the fire. Rasheda's mom woke up to missed calls and angry messages. Instead of backing down, she went on the defensive. "I'm not taking the blame for her lies," she told a friend on speakerphone, loud enough for Rasheda to hear. Rasheda snapped. "Stop talking," she shouted. "You're making it worse." Her mom turned, eyes blazing. "You think I care about what the internet says?" she replied. "I'm tired of covering for people who don't deserve it." That sentence sent chills through Rasheda. She realized her mom wasn't scared. She was relieved. Meanwhile, Jasmine stayed offline, but her silence spoke volumes. Behind closed doors, she was spiraling. Her sister begged her to clear things up. "You have to say something," she insisted. "They're destroying you out there." Jasmine shook her head. "If I speak now, I lose control," she said. But control was already slipping through her fingers. Fans were shocked not just by the leak, but by how quickly people she trusted started choosing sides. A few hours later, Rasheda posted a short video. Her voice trembled as she spoke. "I want to be clear," she said. "I never intended for any of this to happen." Comments flooded in instantly. "Then why didn't you stop her?" one fan wrote. Another commented, "You knew and stayed quiet." Emotions ran high, and no explanation seemed good enough anymore. Then came the twist no one expected. A former friend of Jasmine stepped forward, claiming she had known the truth all along. She posted screenshots of old messages, heavily blurred but just clear enough to stir chaos. "I stayed quiet to protect her," the caption read. "But now I see who she really is." Fans were shocked. Accusations multiplied. The family was left divided even further as trust crumbled publicly. Rasheda confronted her mom again that night. "Did you tell her to post that?" she demanded. Her mom smirked. "People are tired of being silent," she said. Rasheda felt sick. This wasn't about truth anymore. This was about revenge. And Jasmine was the target. Jasmine finally broke. She went live late at night, eyes hollow, voice low. "I see everything you're saying," she told viewers. "And I want you to know, not everything you hear is true." Fans begged her to confirm or deny the name. "Say it's false," someone typed. Jasmine swallowed hard. "Some people knew parts of my story," she said. "And they chose to weaponize it." The comments exploded. Emotions ran high as viewers dissected every word. Off camera, Jasmine received a call from the man at the center of the rumors. His voice was tense. "I can't do this," he said. "They're dragging my family into it." Jasmine closed her eyes. "You promised you wouldn't run," she replied. Silence followed. Then the line went dead. That was the moment she knew she was alone. The next morning, Rasheda woke up to another wave of chaos. Jasmine had unfollowed her. Fans noticed instantly. "Friendship over," one wrote. "This is messy," another commented. The family was left divided, and Rasheda felt like she had lost everything at once. She tried reaching out again, but this time she was blocked. Then another twist hit. A voice note allegedly from Rasheda's mom began circulating, claiming Jasmine had planned to let the truth come out slowly. Whether it was real or not didn't matter. Fans were shocked, and the narrative shifted again. Some began questioning Jasmine's intentions. Others called the leak cruel and calculated. Rasheda confronted her mom for the final time. "You're destroying lives," she cried. Her mom looked at her calmly. "Sometimes things need to burn so people can rebuild," she said. Rasheda realized then that there was no fixing this. The damage was done. Jasmine retreated completely, deleting posts, disappearing from public view. But the internet didn't move on. Every silence was treated like confirmation. Every old clip was reanalyzed. Emotions ran high as fans debated who was lying and who was protecting themselves. Behind the scenes, Jasmine's family urged legal action. Rasheda's family prepared for backlash. Friendships dissolved quietly. Alliances shifted. The family was left divided in ways that might never heal. And as the story continued to spiral, one thing became painfully clear to everyone watching. This wasn't just about a name anymore. It was about trust, betrayal, and how one moment can shatter everything you thought was safe. Days passed, but the tension never cooled. If anything, it thickened, settling over everyone involved like a storm that refused to move on. Jasmine stayed hidden, but people around her couldn't escape the fallout. Her sister stopped answering calls. Close friends went private on social media. Even distant relatives started posting vague quotes about betrayal and loyalty. Fans were shocked by how wide the damage spread, and emotions ran high as everyone tried to read between the lines. Rasheda felt the pressure everywhere she went. At the grocery store, people whispered. At a gas station, someone asked her straight up if the rumors were true. She kept her head down, pretending not to hear it, but inside she was unraveling. She replayed every conversation she'd ever had with Jasmine, every moment where she chose silence over honesty. She told herself she was protecting her friend, but now she wasn't sure who she had really been protecting. One night, unable to sleep, Rasheda scrolled through fan comments until her eyes burned. They all knew. One comment read, "They played us." Another said, "Rasheda's mom didn't slip. She exposed her." Rasheda threw her phone across the bed and covered her face. Emotions ran high, and the family was left divided not just publicly but internally. Relatives stopped speaking. Long-held grudges resurfaced. The leak had opened doors that had been locked for years. Jasmine, meanwhile, was breaking in private. She sat on the floor of her bedroom, surrounded by unopened packages and ignored letters. She felt trapped between telling her truth and losing what little control she had left. Every time she thought about speaking out, she imagined the headlines twisting her words, the comments dissecting her pain. She whispered to herself, "If I say nothing, maybe this will die." But deep down, she knew it wouldn't. Then another unexpected twist hit. A distant cousin of Rasheda posted a long rant online, accusing Jasmine of using people and playing innocent. Within minutes, it was everywhere. Fans were shocked. Emotions ran high. The family was left divided even further as people demanded to know why so many voices were suddenly speaking up. Jasmine watched it unfold from her couch, feeling like the walls were closing in. She finally called Rasheda late that night. Rasheda answered immediately, breath caught in her throat. "Why didn't you stop them?" Jasmine asked quietly. Rasheda's voice cracked. "I tried," she said. "You don't understand how far this has gone." Jasmine laughed bitterly. "I understand perfectly," she replied. "Everyone thinks they own my story now." Neither of them knew what to say next. The call ended with no resolution, only heavier silence. The next day, fans noticed something else. Jasmine's mom liked a comment defending Rasheda's mom. The internet exploded. "Even her own family doesn't back her," one fan wrote. Others accused Jasmine's mom of choosing peace over truth. Emotions ran high as people speculated about private family conversations that no one could confirm. The family was left divided in ways that felt impossible to repair. Rasheda confronted her mom again, desperation in her voice. "Please stop," she begged. "Every time someone speaks, it gets worse." Her mom sighed, almost tired. "This was always going to come out," she said. "You can't hide forever." Rasheda snapped back, "It wasn't your secret to tell." Her mom looked at her sharply. "And it wasn't yours to keep," she replied. That sentence hit harder than any online comment. Another bomb dropped when an anonymous account posted what it claimed was a timeline of Jasmine's relationships. Dates, places, vague references. Nothing fully proven, but enough to stir chaos. Fans were shocked by the level of detail. Emotions ran high as theories spread like wildfire. Some people began questioning whether Jasmine had lied from the very beginning. Others defended her fiercely, saying no woman owed the public her private life. Jasmine finally snapped. She recorded a video, then deleted it. Recorded another, deleted that too. On the third try, she sat still, staring into the camera. "I never asked for this," she said softly. "And I never wanted anyone else hurt because of my choices." Her voice trembled, but she stayed composed. "What hurts the most isn't the rumors," she continued. "It's being betrayed by people who watched me cry behind closed doors." Fans flooded the comments with mixed reactions. Some apologized, others demanded more answers. Emotions ran high as the video ended without naming anyone. Behind the scenes, legal threats were whispered. Cease and desist letters were discussed. People who had been loud suddenly went quiet. Rasheda's mom stopped posting entirely. Fans took that silence as confirmation, while others saw it as fear. The family was left divided, bracing for what might come next. Rasheda met Jasmine one last time in person, away from cameras and phones. They sat across from each other, exhausted. "I lost you," Rasheda said quietly. Jasmine nodded. I lost myself, she replied. There were no accusations left, only sadness. They hugged briefly, both knowing things would never be the same. As weeks went by, the story didn't disappear. It evolved. New rumors replaced old ones. Attention shifted, but scars remained. Jasmine rebuilt slowly, carefully choosing who to trust. Rasheda distanced herself from family gatherings, unable to face the tension. Fans moved on to the next drama, but some stayed, waiting for the final truth. And through it all, one question remained unanswered, hanging in the air like a shadow that refused to fade. Was the name that slipped out really the truth, or just the spark that burned everything down? Time didn't heal anything. It just made the cracks more visible. Weeks after Jasmine's emotional video, people were still arguing in comment sections like the leak had happened yesterday. Reaction videos piled up. Fan pages split into sides. Some defended Jasmine fiercely, saying she was a victim of betrayal. Others insisted the truth had finally slipped out and couldn't be taken back. Fans were shocked by how deeply invested everyone had become, and emotions ran high every single time her name trended again. Jasmine tried to move forward quietly. She focused on her pregnancy, her health, her peace. But peace felt impossible when every notification carried weight. One morning, she woke up to see a blurry photo circulating online, allegedly taken months earlier, showing her standing next to a man whose face was partially hidden. The caption read, "This is the name," Rasheda's mom said. Nothing was confirmed, but it didn't matter. The internet had already decided. The family was left divided all over again, and Jasmine felt like she was being pushed into a corner. She called her lawyer for the first time and asked what her options were. "Can I make them stop?" she asked quietly. The answer wasn't comforting. "You can respond," she was told. "Or you can wait it out." Jasmine hung up and stared at the wall. Responding meant reopening wounds. Waiting meant letting others control her story. Either way, she lost. Rasheda was struggling too, but in a different way. She had become the silent villain in many people's eyes. Fans accused her of knowing everything and doing nothing. Even friends started treating her differently, careful with their words, distant. She overheard someone whisper, "That's her," while standing in line for coffee. Her chest tightened. She wanted to scream that none of this was how it looked, but she knew no explanation would ever be enough. One evening, Rasheda's mom finally broke her silence. She sat down for an interview with a small online channel, claiming she wanted to clear the air. Rasheda begged her not to do it. "Please," she said, "this will only hurt more people." Her mom replied calmly, "My truth matters too." That interview changed everything. During the interview, Rasheda's mom didn't confirm the name outright, but she didn't deny it either. She spoke in circles, hinting, implying, suggesting. "People are smarter than we think," she said with a knowing smile. Fans were shocked. Emotions ran high as clips spread like wildfire. Jasmine watched it in silence, tears streaming down her face. That was the moment she felt something inside her harden. The next day, Jasmine did something no one expected. She posted a long message, not naming anyone, but setting boundaries. "This is the last time I will address this," she wrote. "My child is not content. My body is not a storyline. And my silence should never have been mistaken for guilt." Reactions were mixed. Some fans apologized publicly. Others accused her of deflecting. The family was left divided once more, but Jasmine felt lighter than she had in months. Behind closed doors, the man at the center of the rumors finally reached out again. His voice sounded exhausted. "This has gone too far," he said. "I can't live like this." Jasmine replied softly, "Neither can I." There was a long pause. Then he asked the question that had been avoided for months. "Are you going to say it?" Jasmine closed her eyes. "No," she answered, "because my child deserves better than this circus." That decision didn't stop the chaos. If anything, it fueled it. Fans interpreted her refusal as confirmation. Reaction channels ran with it. Conspiracy theories grew wilder. Emotions ran high as people debated whether Jasmine was protecting someone or protecting herself. The family was left divided not just by opinions but by exhaustion. Rasheda finally snapped after seeing her mom praised online for speaking her truth. She confronted her in tears. "You're being celebrated while I'm being destroyed," she cried. Her mom looked at her for a long moment before saying, "Sometimes being right costs you people." Rasheda shook her head. "You don't even know if you're right," she whispered. That conversation ended with slammed doors and silence that felt permanent. Months passed. Jasmine gave birth quietly, far from cameras. No announcement, no reveal, just silence. Fans were shocked when weeks went by without updates. Some respected it, others felt entitled to more. Emotions ran high as speculation continued, but Jasmine didn't respond. She chose privacy in a world that refused to give it. Rasheda saw a photo surface, taken from afar, showing Jasmine pushing a stroller. The comments were cruel. She closed the app and cried, realizing how deeply everything had spiraled out of control. She sent Jasmine a message she wasn't sure would ever be read. I'm sorry I didn't protect you better, it said. Days later, Jasmine replied with a single line. I'm protecting myself now. The story slowly lost its grip on the mainstream, replaced by newer scandals, louder drama. But for those involved, nothing was forgotten. Relationships remained fractured, trust was permanently damaged, the family was left divided in quiet, lasting ways that didn't need the internet to exist. And still, the question lingered. Not shouted anymore, not trending, but whispered. Was the name that slipped out ever meant to be public? Or was it just one careless moment that turned into a weapon? No one ever gave a final answer. Maybe that was the real ending. Not closure, not truth, but the understanding that some damage can't be undone once the world decides it owns your story. Even after the internet moved on, the consequences stayed heavy. Jasmine felt them in the quiet moments, the ones no camera ever caught. Late nights when the baby finally slept and her thoughts wouldn't. Early mornings when she checked her phone out of habit and remembered she didn't owe anyone updates anymore. Still, the echoes of that name, the one Rasheda's mom allegedly let slip, followed her everywhere. Fans were shocked that nothing was ever confirmed, and emotions ran high every time someone asked why the truth was still being hidden. Behind the scenes, tension in both families never truly settled. Holidays became complicated, invitations were skipped, conversations were shorter, colder. Jasmine's mom tried to keep peace, urging everyone to stop revisiting the past. What's done is done, she'd say. But Jasmine could hear the strain in her voice. The family was left divided, not loudly anymore, but in quiet, permanent ways. Rasheda changed too. She stopped appearing online altogether. No stories, no comments. Friends noticed the difference immediately. She wasn't laughing the same. She wasn't present. Guilt sat on her shoulders like a weight she couldn't put down. Sometimes she replayed that night outside Jasmine's door, wondering what would have happened if she'd spoken sooner, louder, braver. Emotions ran high every time she thought about it, because regret had a way of resurfacing when you least expected it. Rumors still popped up from time to time. A blogger would tease new information. A reaction channel would claim an inside source. Fans were shocked each time, only to be disappointed when nothing concrete followed. Slowly, some began questioning the leak itself. What if she was wrong? One comment read. Another asked, what if the name was never meant the way we thought? Doubt crept in, but it came too late to undo the damage. Jasmine noticed the shift but didn't engage. She had learned the hard way that the internet never truly listens, it only reacts. Instead, she focused on building a smaller, safer circle. People who didn't ask questions. People who didn't hint. People who understood that silence could be survival. Still, some nights she felt anger bubble up. Not at fans, but at the people who knew her personally and spoke anyway. One afternoon, Jasmine received a message request from an unknown account. She almost ignored it, but something made her open it. The message was short. I'm sorry for how my words hurt you. No name, no explanation. Jasmine stared at the screen for a long time. She never replied. Some apologies come too late, and some wounds don't need reopening. Rasheda's mom, once so outspoken, faded into the background. People who once praised her for exposing the truth moved on to the next scandal. That silence was louder than any backlash. She felt it too, even if she'd never admit it. Sometimes she wondered if she'd said too much. Other times she convinced herself it had been necessary. The family was left divided between those who believed in accountability and those who believed in restraint. Months later, a fan spotted Jasmine at a store and posted about how calm she looked. The post went viral for all the wrong reasons. She doesn't look bothered, one comment said. Guess the rumors were true, another added. Emotions ran high again, proving that no matter how much time passed, the story still had a pulse. Rasheda saw that post and felt something break inside her. She realized that Jasmine would never be free of it, no matter how gracefully she moved on. That night, Rasheda wrote a long note in her phone, something she never planned to share. It was an apology, a confession, and a goodbye to the version of her life that existed before the leak. She deleted it before sleeping, but the words stayed with her. Then came the quietest twist of all. Someone close to the situation, someone fans had overlooked, hinted privately that the name everyone focused on might not even be the full story. No proof, no screenshots, just a suggestion that things were more complicated than they seemed. Fans were shocked when whispers of this started circulating. Emotions ran high as people questioned everything they thought they knew. The family was left divided again, this time by uncertainty. Jasmine heard about it and laughed softly for the first time in months. They'll never stop guessing, she said to a friend. And she was right, because the internet doesn't need answers. It needs mystery. And her life had become exactly that. Rasheda and Jasmine never fully repaired their friendship. They exchanged polite messages occasionally, nothing deep. The bond they once had belonged to a different chapter. Both understood that some relationships don't end with explosions but with quiet distance that grows over time. Years from now, fans would still reference the leak in comment sections, asking if the truth would ever come out. Some stories become legends simply because they were never finished. And this one, born from one careless moment, one name whispered too loudly, lived on in fragments. In the end, there was no dramatic reveal, no final confirmation, no moment where everyone agreed on the truth. Just lives altered, trust broken, and a lesson learned too late. That silence can be louder than words. That secrets are fragile. And that once the world thinks it owns your story, getting it back may be the hardest fight of all. Even long after the whispers softened, the shadow of that moment never fully disappeared. Jasmine felt it when she filled out paperwork and hesitated at certain questions. She felt it when people looked a second too long, as if trying to match rumors to reality. Fans were shocked that she never broke, never gave them the ending they wanted. Emotions ran high every time someone resurfaced the clip, slowed down, analyzed, replayed like it was evidence instead of a mistake that spiraled out of control. There were days Jasmine felt powerful for staying silent. Other days, the silence felt like a prison she built herself. She wondered if things would have been easier if she had just said the name, ripped the bandage off, let the chaos burn fast instead of slow. But then she'd look at her child and remind herself why she chose quiet over spectacle. The family was left divided, but her priority was no longer unity. It was peace. Rasheda struggled with her own version of fallout. She lost brand deals quietly. Invitations stopped coming. People didn't want to be associated with drama that never truly died. She heard through mutuals that some fans blamed her more than her mom, calling her the keeper of secrets. That label haunted her. Emotions ran high whenever she thought about how protecting someone she loved had turned into punishment she never expected. One night, Rasheda finally confronted the guilt she'd been running from. She sat with her mom at the kitchen table, the same place where so many arguments had exploded months earlier. This time, there was no yelling. Just exhaustion. "Do you ever wish you hadn't said it?" Rasheda asked quietly. Her mom didn't answer right away. She stared at her hands for a long time. "I wish I had thought about the cost," she finally said. It wasn't an apology, but it was the closest thing Rasheda had ever heard. Online, the narrative slowly shifted from outrage to folklore. New fans discovered the drama and asked old fans to explain it. Timelines were rewritten, facts blurred. Fans were shocked by how many versions of the story existed, each one more dramatic than the last. Emotions ran high not because of anger anymore, but because people hated unanswered questions. The family was left divided in public memory, even if they were learning how to coexist privately. Jasmine noticed that shift too. She saw comments saying, "We'll never know," and "maybe that's the point." For the first time, she felt like the story was slipping out of the internet's grip. Not disappearing, but losing power. Mystery doesn't burn forever. Sometimes it just fades into background noise. Still, every once in a while, a reminder would hit. An old clip would resurface. A creator would tease a deep dive. Jasmine would close the app and breathe through it. Emotions ran high in those moments, but they passed quicker now. She was stronger, not because she won, but because she endured. Rasheda tried rebuilding her life away from the spotlight. She moved, changed routines, surrounded herself with people who knew her as a person, not a headline. But trust didn't come easy anymore. She questioned her instincts constantly. Should she speak up, stay quiet, protect others, or protect herself? The leak had taught her that silence could be both kindness and harm, depending on who paid the price. Then came an unexpected moment of clarity. Jasmine sent Rasheda a voice note, months after their last real conversation. Her voice was calm. "I don't hate you," she said. "But I can't go back to who we were." Rasheda listened to it over and over, tears falling silently. There was grief in those words, but also release. Sometimes closure isn't forgiveness. Sometimes it's acceptance. Fans, of course, never heard that part. They continued debating, speculating, assigning blame. Fans were shocked by how invested they still felt in a story with no ending. Emotions ran high whenever someone claimed to have new information, even when it led nowhere. The family was left divided in the audience's imagination long after real lives had started moving on. Jasmine eventually shared a small update, not about the past, but about the future. A photo of sunlight through a window. A caption about gratitude. No comments enabled. No explanations. That post spoke louder than any reveal ever could. It told people she was choosing herself. Rasheda saw it and smiled sadly. She knew that was the healthiest ending this story would ever get. Not truth exposed. Not lies confirmed. Just distance, growth, and lessons learned the hard way. In the end, the leak became a warning whispered in similar circles. A reminder of how quickly a private moment can turn into public damage. How one name, one sentence, one careless second can rewrite lives. The family was left divided, yes, but also changed. Boundaries were drawn. Silence was redefined. And while the internet moved on to louder scandals, this one stayed etched in memory, not because of what was proven, but because of what was lost. And maybe that was the real mistake. Not the name itself, but forgetting that once words are out, they don't belong to you anymore. Even after all that time, the story refused to fully rest. It lingered in the background like a scar people pretended not to stare at. Jasmine noticed it when strangers tried to be extra kind, as if walking on emotional glass. She noticed it when old fans resurfaced with long messages saying they understood now, even though nothing had actually been clarified. Fans were shocked that closure never came in the way they expected, and emotions ran high whenever someone realized there would be no final confession, no dramatic sit-down, no name spoken out loud. Jasmine learned to live with that discomfort. She stopped asking herself what she could have done differently and started asking what she needed next. Therapy became part of her routine. Long walks without her phone. Boundaries that felt selfish at first, but slowly became survival. The family was left divided, but she no longer felt responsible for stitching everyone back together. Some things break beyond repair, and forcing them back only causes more damage. Rasheda, on the other hand, struggled with feeling forgotten and remembered at the same time. She wasn't trending anymore, but her name still carried weight in certain spaces. People who recognized her would hesitate before speaking, unsure whether to bring it up or avoid it completely. That awkward pause hurt more than confrontation ever did. Emotions ran high inside her, even when the outside world felt quiet. One afternoon, Rasheda attended a small gathering where someone jokingly said, "Remember when one name broke the internet?" Laughter followed, but Rasheda felt sick. She excused herself, locked herself in a bathroom, and cried silently. That was when she realized the story would always follow her, not loudly, but persistently. Not as drama, but as a cautionary tale people referenced without considering the people inside it. Jasmine faced her own version of that moment when a new acquaintance asked, "Weren't you part of that big baby daddy scandal?" The word scandal hit her hard. She smiled politely and said, "I'm part of my own life now." Later that night, she sat alone and let herself feel the anger she usually pushed aside. Fans were shocked when they later noticed she unfollowed several longtime accounts, choosing peace over loyalty that had long expired. Rasheda's mom watched all of this from a distance, quieter than she'd ever been. The confidence she once carried had dulled. Not because she was publicly punished, but because she lived with the knowledge that her words had consequences she couldn't undo. Sometimes she'd replay that moment in her head, wondering how everything might have changed if she'd paused, if she'd chosen silence. The family was left divided, but guilt didn't choose sides. It sat where it wanted. Months turned into years. Jasmine's life looked different now. Smaller, steadier. She laughed more genuinely. She trusted fewer people, but trusted them deeply. She stopped explaining herself. When asked about the past, she'd say, "That chapter is closed," and mean it. Emotions ran high less often, replaced by a calm that came from acceptance rather than victory. Rasheda eventually found her own version of peace. Not forgiveness from the public, not redemption arcs, just understanding herself better. She learned that protecting someone doesn't always mean staying quiet, and speaking up doesn't always mean betraying. The gray area between those truths was where she lived now. It wasn't comfortable, but it was honest. Fans still argued occasionally. New theories surfaced from time to time. Someone would claim they finally figured it out. Others would roll their eyes, tired of chasing a truth that no longer mattered. Fans were shocked by how much energy had once been poured into a story that ended not with fireworks, but with fading echoes. Emotions ran high less often now, replaced by indifference or reflection. One day, Jasmine came across an old clip by accident. The one that started it all. She watched it once, without flinching. Then she closed the app. No tears, no anger, just distance. That moment no longer defined her. It was a turning point, not a prison. Rasheda heard someone say Jasmine's name in passing and felt no spike of panic, no wave of guilt. Just a quiet acknowledgement of history. She realized healing didn't mean forgetting. It meant remembering without breaking. The family was left divided, yes, but life went on anyway. People adapted, relationships shifted, some bonds dissolved, others formed in their place. And while the internet loved to frame everything as winners and losers, real life was never that clean. In the end, the biggest shock wasn't the leak, the name, or the fallout. It was how everyone survived it in their own imperfect ways. How silence, once weaponized, became a shield. How truth, once demanded, lost its grip. And how a single moment taught everyone involved that some stories don't need an ending to be over. The longer time passed, the more the story transformed from a scandal into a lesson people referenced without realizing they were still reopening wounds. Jasmine noticed it when podcasts casually mentioned her situation as an example of what happens when families get messy online. She never responded. She had learned that correcting narratives only kept them alive. Instead, she focused on raising her child in a world that didn't know the difference between curiosity and entitlement. Fans were shocked that she stayed so firm in her silence, and emotions ran high whenever someone insisted she owed them clarity. There were moments, though, when the weight of it all pressed down unexpectedly. A simple question from a doctor. A form asking about family history. A pause before answering that felt heavier than it should have. Jasmine would breathe through it and remind herself that not everything had to be explained out loud. Privacy wasn't lying, it was choosing what mattered. The family was left divided, but she no longer saw that as her responsibility to fix. Rasheda watched Jasmine from afar, never commenting, never reacting, but always aware. She noticed the calm that seemed to surround her now, a calm that came from walking through fire and refusing to burn again. It made Rasheda confront her own healing. She had spent so long carrying blame that she forgot to ask herself what she needed to move forward. Therapy helped, distance helped, accepting that some apologies don't restore what was lost helped the most. Every once in a while, Rasheda's mom would bring it up quietly, almost carefully. "Do you think people still believe it?" she'd ask. Rasheda would shrug. "People believe whatever fits their version," she'd reply. Those conversations were shorter now, less defensive, more reflective. The family was left divided, but there was less shouting, less bitterness. Just an understanding that some things couldn't be undone. Online, new generations of fans discovered the story in fragments. Short clips, old tweets, reaction videos reacting to other reaction videos. Fans were shocked by how intense it all once was. Emotions ran high for a moment, then faded as attention shifted elsewhere. The internet had moved on, even if memory hadn't. Jasmine sometimes wondered if the man at the center of it all ever felt relief or regret. They never spoke again, not because of anger, but because the past had done enough damage. She hoped he found peace in his own way. She hoped everyone involved did. But hope didn't mean reopening doors that were better left closed. One quiet evening, Jasmine wrote a letter she never sent. Not to the public, not to fans, but to herself. It reminded her why she stayed silent. Why she chose dignity over chaos. Why protecting her child mattered more than winning an argument she never asked to be part of. She folded it and put it away, feeling lighter afterward. Emotions ran high while writing it, but they settled once the words were out, even if no one else ever read them. Rasheda experienced a similar release when she finally told a close friend the full truth of how trapped she felt back then. Not details, not names, just the fear, the loyalty, the confusion. Saying it out loud broke something open inside her. She realized she had been young, overwhelmed, and trying to do the right thing in an impossible situation. Forgiveness didn't come from the internet. It came from understanding herself. Fans continued to debate hypotheticals. What if she had spoken sooner? What if the name was wrong? What if it was all blown out of proportion? Fans were shocked by how many what ifs still existed. Emotions ran high in comment sections that repeated the same arguments years later. But for the people living it, those questions no longer mattered. Jasmine's life settled into a rhythm that felt real, not performative. Mornings filled with laughter, nights filled with exhaustion and gratitude. She stopped being defined by the worst moment of her public life. Not because the internet allowed it, but because she chose not to carry that label anymore. The family was left divided, but she built a family of her own that felt safe. Rasheda eventually found joy again too. Not the loud kind she once shared online, but something quieter. Stable. She learned to trust her instincts again. She learned that loyalty shouldn't cost you your peace. And when people brought up the past, she no longer froze. She simply said, "That was a hard time," and let the conversation move on. There was no reunion episode. No sit-down interview. No explosive reveal. And maybe that disappointed some fans. Fans were shocked that real life didn't follow reality TV rules. Emotions ran high for those who wanted drama, but slowly, even they accepted that the story was over in the only way it could be. The family was left divided, yes, but also wiser. Boundaries were clearer. Words were chosen more carefully. Silence was respected, at least within their own circles. The outside world could speculate forever, but the people at the center had already paid the price. And in the end, that leaked name became less important than the truth no one talked about. That a single moment can change lives. That gossip can wound deeper than intention. And that sometimes the strongest response isn't speaking louder, but walking away and choosing peace in a world that profits from noise. As time stretched on, the story settled into something quieter but heavier, like a bruise that no longer hurt unless you pressed on it. Jasmine felt that pressure whenever someone new entered her life and eventually circled back to the same question, carefully phrased, pretending to be curiosity instead of hunger. She learned to smile without answering. She learned that not every truth needed an audience. Fans were shocked that she never cracked, and emotions ran high every time someone claimed they would have handled it differently. Jasmine stopped measuring her healing by whether people believed her. She measured it by how often she laughed without thinking about the past, by how rarely her hands shook when her phone buzzed. There were still bad days, but they no longer owned her. The family was left divided, but she finally accepted that division wasn't always failure. Sometimes it was the natural result of choosing yourself. Rasheda watched from a distance, carrying her own quiet lessons. She became more careful with words, more aware of how easily moments could be misinterpreted or weaponized. She noticed how people spoke about truth when it suited them and privacy when it didn't. That awareness stayed with her, shaping how she moved through the world. Emotions ran high internally, but outwardly she stayed calm, steady, intentional. One evening, Rasheda attended a small dinner where someone brought up the idea of forgiveness. Not directly, not by name, but it hung in the air. She realized forgiveness didn't always mean reconciliation. Sometimes it meant releasing yourself from the version of the story where you were only the villain or only the victim. That realization didn't fix everything, but it loosened something inside her chest. Jasmine had a similar moment when her child asked an innocent question about family. She answered simply, without tension, without explanation that reached beyond what was necessary. Afterward, she sat alone and cried, not from pain, but from relief. The past no longer controlled how she showed up as a mother. The family was left divided, but her child would grow up without carrying that weight. Online, the story continued to fade into reference. Remember that drama? People would say, half remembered, half forgotten. Fans were shocked by how fast attention moved on when there was no new fuel. Emotions ran high less often now, replaced by nostalgia or mild curiosity. The internet had taken what it wanted and moved forward, leaving the real people to deal with the aftermath. Rasheda's mom rarely spoke about it anymore. When she did, her words were slower, more measured. She had learned that being heard didn't always mean being understood, and sometimes being understood required restraint she hadn't shown before. The family was left divided, but there was less bitterness in the air, more quiet acknowledgement of shared mistakes. Jasmine eventually realized something else. The leak didn't just expose her life. It exposed how fragile boundaries were in a world that treated women's bodies and choices as public property. That understanding gave her a strange sense of clarity. She wasn't weak for staying silent. She was strong for refusing to perform her pain. Fans were shocked when that perspective began to circulate in quieter spaces, changing how some people viewed the entire situation. Rasheda saw that shift too and felt a mix of pride and regret. Pride that Jasmine had reclaimed her narrative in her own way. Regret that it had taken so much loss to get there. She accepted that both feelings could exist at the same time. Emotions ran high when she allowed herself to feel them honestly, without judgment. There were moments when Jasmine considered telling her story fully, on her own terms. Writing it, recording it, locking it away. She realized the act of choosing mattered more than the act itself. Power came from having the option and not being forced. The family was left divided, but she no longer felt divided within herself. Rasheda learned to sit with discomfort when people brought it up, not rushing to explain, not rushing to defend. She understood now that explanations didn't always heal. Sometimes they just reopened wounds. Silence, when chosen freely, could be a form of integrity rather than avoidance. Fans continued to speculate in smaller numbers. One day she'll tell, they'd say. The truth always comes out. But Jasmine no longer believed truth was a single moment or a single statement. Truth lived in how she protected her peace, how she showed up for her child, how she refused to let one moment define a lifetime. Emotions ran high less often now because she wasn't feeding the fire anymore. As years passed, the story became less about what was said and more about what followed. Resilience, boundaries, loss, growth. The family was left divided but also transformed. People changed, priorities shifted, mistakes were remembered, but they no longer dictated every conversation. Jasmine looked back once, not with anger, but with clarity. She saw a woman who had been overwhelmed, judged, and cornered, and she felt compassion for that version of herself. She whispered thank you to the woman who survived it. Then she moved forward again. Rasheda did the same in her own way. She forgave the version of herself who thought silence was the safest option. She understood now that safety isn't always quiet. Sometimes it's courage, sometimes it's boundaries, sometimes it's walking away. And so the story ended the way many real stories do. Not with answers that satisfy everyone, but with lives that continue despite being changed. Fans were shocked by the lack of spectacle. Emotions ran high for those who wanted drama. But for the people who lived it, the ending was enough. Because in the end, the biggest truth wasn't a name. It was the cost of forgetting that behind every headline, every clip, every rumor, there are real people who have to live with the echo long after the noise fades. As the years continued to pass, the story settled into something almost myth-like, retold in fragments, reshaped by whoever was speaking. Jasmine noticed how people no longer asked with urgency but with curiosity, like they were discussing a legend rather than a real moment that once cracked her life open. Fans were shocked that she had managed to outgrow the narrative, and emotions ran high only for those still clinging to the past for entertainment. Jasmine no longer flinched when her name appeared in unexpected places. She had learned that being talked about didn't mean being touched. The distance she created protected her in ways she never thought possible. She focused on routines, stability, laughter that came naturally. The family was left divided, but her sense of self finally felt whole. Rasheda reached a point where she could speak about that chapter without her chest tightening. Not because it didn't matter anymore, but because it no longer defined her. She accepted that her role in the story was complicated, layered, human. She wasn't a villain or a hero. She was someone caught between loyalty and fear, trying to survive the moment with the tools she had. Emotions ran high when she first admitted that to herself, but acceptance brought peace. Occasionally, someone would try to reignite the drama. A podcast teaser, a speculative post. Fans were shocked for a brief moment, then bored when nothing new emerged. The internet had moved on, even if it pretended not to. The family was left divided in history, but present-day life was quieter, more grounded. Jasmine realized something profound during a conversation with a close friend. They wanted a reveal, she said, but what they really wanted was control. Saying it out loud felt freeing. She had reclaimed something that was taken from her the moment the leak happened. She no longer felt like she owed anyone access to her truth. Rasheda's mom rarely spoke about the situation anymore, but when she did, there was a heaviness to her tone. Not regret exactly, but awareness. She had seen firsthand how one moment could ripple outward, affecting lives far beyond its origin. The family was left divided, but even she understood now that silence sometimes protects more than it hides. Jasmine watched her child grow and felt gratitude that the chaos existed mostly in memory. The internet might remember, but her child wouldn't. That thought grounded her on difficult days. Fans were shocked when years later someone asked if she would ever tell her side, and she calmly replied, "I live my side every day." Emotions ran high in the comments, but Jasmine logged off and went back to her life. Rasheda found herself drawn to helping others navigate public pressure, offering quiet advice behind the scenes. She never referenced her own experience directly, but the wisdom was there. She knew what it felt like to be pulled apart by other people's opinions. She knew how fragile trust could be. That knowledge shaped her into someone more thoughtful, more careful, more compassionate. Time softened the sharpest edges, but it didn't erase memory. Jasmine accepted that some people would always believe a version of events that suited them. She stopped fighting that reality. Truth, she learned, isn't always about correction. Sometimes it's about endurance. The family was left divided, but her life was no longer centered on repairing fractures that weren't hers to fix. Rasheda revisited old messages once, not to punish herself, but to understand who she had been. She saw fear, confusion, loyalty, love. She forgave herself quietly. Emotions ran high in that moment, but they passed, replaced by clarity. Fans still occasionally debated the story, but it lacked urgency now. It had become something people referenced when discussing internet culture, privacy, and how quickly narratives can spiral. Fans were shocked when they realized how little they actually knew. Emotions ran high only briefly, before fading again. Jasmine reflected on how strange it was that one leaked moment had once consumed so much attention. She wondered how many other lives were altered in similar ways, unseen, unsupported. That thought deepened her empathy, not her anger. She understood now that outrage often says more about the audience than the subject. Rasheda understood that too. She stopped measuring herself by public perception and started measuring herself by integrity. She spoke when it mattered. She stayed silent when it didn't. She learned that both could be powerful choices. The family was left divided, but not frozen in that division. People grew, adapted, learned. Some relationships healed partially, others stayed distant. All of it became part of a larger story about growth rather than destruction. Jasmine looked back once more, not to reopen wounds, but to recognize her own strength. She had survived being exposed, judged, and speculated about without losing herself. She had built a life beyond the noise. That realization filled her with quiet pride. Rasheda shared a similar moment of clarity when she realized she no longer feared being misunderstood. She accepted that misunderstanding was inevitable, but self-betrayal was optional. That lesson stayed with her. And so the story continued to exist, but without power. It lived in archives, comments, and half-remembered clips. But for the people who lived it, it had transformed into something else entirely. A reminder, a boundary, a turning point. Fans were shocked that the ending wasn't explosive. Emotions ran high only for those who needed spectacle. But real life rarely offers that. Instead, it offers survival, growth, and the quiet decision to move forward. In the end, what remained wasn't a name, a leak, or a scandal. It was the understanding that some truths are not meant to be consumed. Some stories are not owed. And some endings don't arrive with answers, but with peace earned the hard way. And now it's your turn. After everything you've just heard, one question still hangs in the air, refusing to disappear. Was this all an innocent mistake that spiraled out of control, or was the truth always waiting for the right moment to slip out? Fans are still shocked, emotions are still divided, and opinions are still clashing long after the noise faded. You've seen how one name, one moment, changed relationships, broke trust, and left an entire family divided. But what do you think really happened behind closed doors? Do you believe Jasmine stayed silent to protect her peace, or was there more she didn't want the world to know? Was Rasheda's mom wrong for speaking at all, or did she say what others were too afraid to admit? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this conversation is far from over. Read what other viewers are saying, respond to them, debate it out respectfully, and let your voice be heard. This is one of those stories where every perspective adds another layer. If this story kept you hooked from start to finish, make sure you hit that like button so more people can find it. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more jaw-dropping drama, shocking twists, and stories that the internet can't stop talking about. And turn on notifications so you never miss when the next bombshell drops. Because around here, the tea is always hot, the truth is never simple, and the drama is just getting started.